Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Andres, and we did comic books and graphic novels. Here you go.
Okay, so comics kind of started out with The Yellow Kid, which was by E.W. Townsend, and this was the first real continuing comic book. It's just a story about a young boy and some strange adventures he went on. Actually, it was published in a New York newspaper by G.W. Willingham. Then you move on to The Cats and Jammer Kids. This is a currently comic book that is still currently running. It's the longest one around. It's a story of two young boys getting a bunch of crazy adventures and getting in a bunch of mischief and trouble. So yeah, and then move on to Gasoline Alley, and this is a significant comic because it's the first comic that had characters age in real time. So they grew up, they went off to fight in wars, they got married, they had kids, and for every 2 years in real life, 1 year passed in the comic. So that was new. And then there was Little Orphan Annie, which was a famous comic that not only was again a famous comic, but it had its own Broadway show, it's had its own movie, and it had a large cultural impact beyond just a comic. But that's what it actually started out as, was a comic.
Blondie came along and is today in various newspapers, and there are a lot of good jokes and whatnot in there. And eventually, we head to the superhero genre, which starts off with Superman Action Comics #1, started by two young Jewish boys, and various other costume heroes came about from this, Batman and whatnot. And we later get various icons such as Captain America, who helped us get through World War II in a way. And throughout the decades, we have seen comics going through various stages of our own lives. Eventually, we get the Comics Code Authority due to horror comics coming out, and various people, such as parents and various critics and writers, said that comics were getting too gory, too graphic, and they didn't want their children to be viewing this. So various comic companies came up with a comics code to have a moral code for kids not to see crime and to see soldiers and police officers as the rightful heroes and criminals as nothing but criminals. And this later changed, as today we see various crimes and whatnot in comics, and we've seen 9/11 attacks in comics. We've seen various war like stuff in comics today, and we see various cartoons such as here in Calvin and Hobbes, and how a kid can just be a kid, and we get the funnier comic strips such as Garfield here. But eventually, we did get something called graphic novels. Now, graphic novels are basically comic books, but they're put into a novel form with the proper binding and whatnot. One such example is V for Vendetta, which was very graphic in a sense. And we've seen various changes with these graphic novels of today.
Yeah, graphic novels have really changed the way that the comic book industry works. People aren't buying comics week to week or month to month anymore because they can wait for graphic novels like The Sandman to come out as one big story. And the comic book industry is almost kind of hurting because of graphic novels, and also stores that used to sell comic books oftentimes in the 50s and 60s were local stores, and because of the economy and big booming businesses, things like that aren't around so much anymore. So graphic novels like The Watchmen are continuing to be sold, while the week-to-week comics that many of our parents and grandparents grew up with aren't so strong anymore. And we learned a lot of this from a lot of
Read off the. Oops.
All right, so we had a lot of reliable sources: Wikipedia, comicartville.com, randomhistory.com, graphicnovel.broadart.com, infoplease.com, comicbookresources.com, and comiclist.com.
We learned a lot about comic books and graphic novels, and hopefully so have you. Thanks for listening to us, and we'll see you all in class. I'm Andrew Stevens.
And I'm Andres Fulgencio. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Okay.
Bye.